All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about some comments made by Case Keenum on Stefon Diggs. Of course, these guys were part of the Minneapolis Miracle, back in 2017, which, can't believe how fast time flies with that because, it felt like yesterday. Because I remember with that play, my uncle said, right before it, he said, man, the Vikings really need a miracle here. And then literally right after he said that, and you might think I'm, spewing out garbage here, but no, this actually did happen. He said they really need a miracle here. And then right after he said that, Keenum hit Diggs for the touchdown, which was so funny that happened. But yeah, that was a long time ago. And since then, Case Keenum was bouncing around even before that, but it looked like he, maybe found a home with the Vikings at the time. But they ended up moving off of him, and he went to... Where did he go after that? Oh, no, he went to Denver. Then he went to Washington the following year, but he went to Denver after that. And that's when the Vikings got Kirk Cousins. And then Stefon Diggs, 2019 was his last season with the Vikings. He went to the Bills, of course. They reunited there. And now they're in Houston together. And Case Keenum, I think this is his... Is this his third time with the Texans? Because he was with the Texans, if you remember, he had his debut... I think his debut was on Sunday night against the Colts back in 2013. And he threw a couple of touchdown passes to Andre Johnson. This was against the Andrew Luck Colts. Yeah, he, that was, they ended up losing the game. The Colts came back, but that was the first time we ever really saw Case Keenum. And then, then he's kind of bounced around. He was with the Rams, he was with the Vikings, he was with Denver, was with Washington, was with Cleveland for a couple years, then was with Buffalo last year, and now he's with Houston. Actually, no, 2022 he was with Buffalo. Last year he was with Houston. So this was his second time with Houston. So yeah, once again reunited with Stefon Diggs, and this is what he had to say about Diggs. He said, "Yeah, it's really cool to get back out there and see Stefon on the practice field and to watch him absolutely do some dirty things on some routes that I haven't seen anybody be able to do. He's a dynamic player, and he hasn't lost a step. If anything, he's gotten more savviness and can put some extra sauce on some routes when he needs to and win. He's done a great job of continuing to build his craft and work his tool set, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the fall." And I just want to make sure. I think that was... Oh, yeah. He also said, "I think he's hungry. There was obviously a lot of success, and guys are very proud of what we were able to do and what he was able to do. There's still some meat on the bone. We still want to get after it. We want to finish with the confetti falling down and winning the last one." Oh, so he was kind of, just talking about Diggs and, the Texans as a whole from last season. But yeah, I mean, I've talked about Diggs, and, when the trade first happened, and really just anytime I've talked about Diggs or anything, pertaining to him and stuff that went on with him and Josh Allen, I don't think, there are people that think that Stefon Diggs is washed. And I feel like that's kind of strong. I don't think he's washed. I think he's still got some good years left. I do agree that, the Bills, maybe weren't, he wasn't the focal point of the Bills' offense. Josh Allen wasn't constantly throwing to Diggs, like he had been. Because they did, they made the change with the offensive coordinator. They got rid of Ken Dorsey, and they brought in Joe Brady, and they ran the ball a lot more. But I know that, we go back to the playoff game against the Chiefs, and Josh Allen threw that ball up into the stratosphere, and Diggs didn't come down with it. And if he caught that kind of changed the complexion of the game, but, that ended up not happening. People point to whenever Diggs, at times when Diggs would get opportunities, he would drop passes, and, that's where people say, well, he's washed. I don't think so. like I said, I think he's still got some good years left. And I think he's in a good spot with the Texans. But there is a common denominator, though. You know, he wanted out of Minnesota, goes to the Bills, and then, you know, gets traded from the Bills to Houston now. So what's going to happen now that he's in Houston? Because, and I've said this, there are a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. Because you got Diggs, of course, but you also have Nico Collins, who had a big year last year that got paid. Tank Dell coming back from injury. You know, him and C.J.Stroud had a nice connection before he got hurt. Dalton Schultz started playing really well. You know, him and Stroud started getting on the same page in the, you know, middle part of the season, second half of the year, around that time. And, you know, they're going to try to run the football a little bit with Joe Mixon. So, you know, Stefon Diggs is not going to be the focal point in this offense. He doesn't have to be the guy. But is he going to be okay with that? I think if the Texans, you know, win the whole thing, I mean, you got to throw, you know, the ego out the window a little bit and say, well, we just won the Super Bowl. But yeah, I'm curious to see how. I mean, that's way down the line. But, you know, early part of the season, as we go through the season, you know, if Diggs is not, you know, putting up big numbers certain games and other guys are, you know, how is he gonna respond to that? Even if the Texans are winning, you know, is there gonna be some, you know, cryptic social media posts about him not getting the ball enough? If that's the case, again, this is all speculation, but I could see that happening. So, I mean, only time will tell with that. But, yeah, I'm kind of with... I mean, Case Keenum is seeing Stefon Diggs in practice. You know, I don't think he's lying when he's saying that Stefon Diggs can still run routes at a high level. He can still play at a high level in general. I think Diggs is going to go out there and he's going to have a good year. I don't know if he's going to put up the numbers like he did in Buffalo because, again, you're playing in a loaded offense. You got guys that, you know, C.J.Stroud's going to be spreading the ball around. But I think Diggs will go out there, have a good year, and I think he'll show that he isn't washed. He just might not put up the same numbers that he did in Buffalo. But but like I've said, I'm really excited about what this Texans offense is going to look like. You know, and I went over their schedule earlier, of course. I mean, there's a lot of intriguing matchups on their schedule. You know, Diggs is going to be going up against the Vikings. He's going to be going up against the Bills. And you know, I mean, he's going to have some good games. But, you know, if there are games where he's not really getting involved and, you know, he lays a dud for you in fantasy and only puts up like 30 yards receiving. You know, I mean, I think if that happens frequently, that's going to be a problem for him. But, you know, I mean, here or there, like, you know, a couple games where he doesn't have a big one, I mean, I don't think that should be a big deal. But, you know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how Stroud tries to get all these guys involved. You know, because there's plenty of weapons on this team besides Diggs. But that's why this is a good spot for him. Because there's a threat everywhere. You know, and that's what's going to make this Texans offense really dangerous in 2024. So let me know what you guys think, though, about what Case Keenum had to say. How do you guys feel about Stefon Diggs? Do you think that he is washed? Do you think he's not washed? I mean, yeah, I think washed, like, that's very strong. I don't think he's washed. But, yeah, I like I said, I think he'll be good with Houston, of course. Yeah, we'll see how he fits into this offense. So, and you know, and I've talked about how I feel about the Texans. They're going to be very good. So, but yeah, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in if anybody has any last-minute comments before we wrap up here, because we got 61 people in the chat. I mean, if you got any last-minute remarks before I sign off here, we got a couple minutes here. So if anybody has anything that they want to discuss quickly before we wrap up today, just let me know. Still got a little bit of time here, but at least with the segment here, that's what I got. I will be in attendance for the. I'll make this little announcement. I'll be in attendance for the Subway Series game tonight between the Yankees and the Mets. One team's playing really well, the other team is not, and it's not what you would think based on the records. But it should be an interesting game tonight. So looking forward to that. And also the Stanley Cup did wrap up last night. The Panthers, despite blowing a 3-0 lead, they did end up defeating the Oilers 2-1. So they get that Stanley Cup. So that turned out to be a good Stanley Cup final. Even though at one point the series was 3-0. And, at least, the Stanley Cup final ended up being a good series. Went 7 games. And the game last night was a good game. Got to watch a little bit of it while I was working, but yeah, so that hockey's done, and it's really it's baseball's time now, So and football is right around the corner. We got a little bit more to go, but right now this is baseball show, and of course you got the WNBA with the the young players with Caitlin Clark, of course. We're going to wrap it up here. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows, of course. Get their perspectives on different things. We cover basically every sport, so make sure to check out all the other shows they are going on throughout the day. So, with that is all the time that we have for today. So, once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.